Now I know what you're thinking. Ecamm seems a little confusing. My name's Jake Galvan, and in this video, I'm going to prove to you that it's not confusing. You're going to learn what each of these windows are and come away with a better understanding of what Ecamm is and how to use it. We're going to start this tutorial by getting rid of all of the windows. Hold down Command, press Shift, and then H. That makes everything go away. Now, if you want the main window to be clean as well, hold down Command and press the tilde button. It's right next to the number 1. There you go. Let's bring some of this stuff back. So let's start with the first window. This is called the Scenes window. The Scenes window is really for the structure of what you want to show to the people viewing your broadcast, your lesson. For instance, let's say that you are going to have a play. You're going to have Act 1, where you will set up and establish the characters, their relationships, their world that they live in. Then they'll encounter an issue. And then Act 2 is usually the rising action, where they learn to overcome the issue, usually through a whole bunch of trials. And then eventually they get to Act 3, where they resolve the conflict, and hopefully everybody lives happily ever after. Another example of a scene will take us back to grade school. It's very easy to understand scenes whenever you think of it as an essay. With an essay, your introduction will include a hook, and it'll also include your thesis. From there, you'll have your body topics, usually 3 paragraphs, topic 1, 2, 3. And then you'll end with your conclusion / critical question, lingering thought, whatever you want to end your essay with. Another way to think about a scene is in the structure of a song. So a lot of songs will start with an introduction where it gets the listener's attention, gets them tapping their feet. And then it moves into the first verse, where it kind of tells the story of what the song is going to be about. From there, it moves on to the pre-chorus, where it kind of builds a little bit of tension, a little bit of excitement, and then the chorus comes along with the main theme, the main message. And once they've delivered that message, it moves to the bridge. And the bridge is sort of like a break from the rest of the song. It could also be a variant of the main song. Eventually, that bridge moves to the outro, where the song will conclude by retelling the story, or kind of wrapping up the story of that song, and then eventually it fades out. Now, when it comes to the scenes of a live show, you'll know that they typically start with a countdown timer. Once the timer's over, the guests will usually introduce themselves, welcome everybody, say hello, and then they'll get into the main content. After that, they'll start to look at the chat, look at the comments, and start taking some questions, giving some answers, and they'll typically chat back and forth for a little while. And then they'll end with some key takeaways, review all of the content that they discussed, and then they'll usually have a call to action, send people somewhere, have them do something, ask another question, and then they'll roll the outro. An outro is kind of the opposite of a countdown timer. So that's a look at scenes. Let's take a look at the next window. It's called overlays. You can bring it up by clicking on this button on the top right of the utility window. Now, what are overlays? Now, imagine that the room that I'm in is a series of overlays layered on top of each other. The back overlay or bottom overlay would be the wall that is painted the hideous taupe color that just about every house has ever been painted. On top of that, we have a series of bookshelves. We've got the Texas flag, and then in the same plane, we have some objects. Now, the next thing in front of those objects is me. And then we have microphone boom. Those would be my overlays. Now, to really drive home what overlays are and how to put them together, we're going to make a new scene, and we're going to call it a simple pizza. I pre-made some images. I'm going to bring them over here next to the overlay window, and I've numbered them to make this very simple. In this scene, our current scene, we're going to build a pizza by, first, we need a surface to build it on. So you can see a surface has appeared here. I could have also just drug it into the main window. Next, we need a cutting board to make the pizza on. Now, you'll run into this problem. We have a cutting board, but you can't see it, even though it's visible. What you don't know is that it's actually underneath our surface. So we have to bring it on top of our surface by dragging it right above the surface. Now, speaking of dragging things around, if you don't want your surface to ever move, you got to lock it in place. And there's a little lock button down here in the overlays window. Great. Now that's locked in. Now, nothing we do will move it. Instead, it'll just move the entire main window. Now, I do want to resize this cutting board, so I'll grab it and move it so I can see the bottom right corner of it. And then you have to very precariously grab the bottom right corner of it, and let's move it into place. There we go. I have it where I want it. I'm going to lock it in place. And if you mess something up, Hold down Command, press Z, just like you do in all of your Word documents. So let's go ahead and add my face onto the screen down here in the bottom right corner. And I'll do that by clicking Add Camera Overlay. Now you can drag this around. A lot of people these days have been going with either the tall version, but the main one I've been seeing today is round. Not this large though. Typically down here in the bottom right corner. There we go, that looks pretty good. Let's lock that in place so it doesn't move. All right, now let's bring some crust onto the scene, and we will have to resize and maneuver this, but everything else is locked down, so it should be fine. There we go, we have a crust. Don't forget to lock it in place. Let's bring the sauce into place. Resize the sauce. You don't want to get it all over the place. We just want it on the pizza. Unless you have kids like me, then it's getting all over the place no matter what. There we go. Lock the sauce into place. Time for a little cheese. You'll notice that things move around sometimes without you wanting it to. I wish you could lock the main window in place, but that is not an option quite yet. All right, here we go. We're almost there. We've got some mozzarella cheese with the sauce and the crust. And because I couldn't find a non-copyrighted picture of pepperonis, we're going to use tomatoes. And we're almost there. Let's resize this just a little bit. Now, the reason why I went through the trouble of showing you all this is because you're probably not going to make a digital pizza, but you will probably have a logo, or you'll have some text, or you'll have a picture in the background, or a video playing. For instance, if I wanted to put my name up here, I could, if I were at work, type in Mr. G, and then I can resize this text, put it down here. That's probably way too big. Let's bring that down a little bit, center it up, and that's a little bit better. All right, there's Mr. G's Pizzeria lesson. Now, I forgot to lock these things into place, and that could have been bad. So, lock your overlays into place unless you need to move them. You can actually lock the entire scene. All right, let's move on to the next window. Let's talk about audio. Here you can see that my main microphone is coming in here, and whenever I bring in videos, I like to have the volume at a much lower level, especially with sound effects, which we'll talk about later. And then oftentimes my interview guests, their volume is always just way louder than mine, so I have to bring it down a little bit. But just know any audio source that you plug in will show up as an option here in this menu, so that's sound levels. Okay, next up, let's talk about the camera effects. Let's imagine that you're standing way over here, and in this picture-in-picture, it just doesn't look right, but you can't move yourself over. Now, none of these things are going to work unless you unlock your scene first. So click the unlock button. I like to unlock the camera also. Then you can check this box and you can zoom in if you need to, and you can grab this guy right here and line it up as much as you need to. All right, that looks way better. Now that we've adjusted the camera effects, let's make sure we lock the scene back into place. Our next window is going to be sound effects. Here are all the sound effects that I have. Unfortunately for now, it also houses my music. The reason I say unfortunately is because I would like if the music were in a separate window from the sound effects, so that the sound effects would not interrupt the music. If you have music playing on a loop like I do during a stream, anytime you use a sound effect, for instance, it just cuts out the music altogether. So this is something that you'll have to bring in the music separately. And if I can suggest one thing, it would be to put your ambient music in a folder and then have the folder just play on a loop, so that throughout the course of your stream, there's just this low level music playing. Speaking of low level, you got to make sure that you adjust it down properly, but that also adjusts the sound effects level. In a later video, we'll go over other ways to play sound effects and other ways to play music separately so that neither one of them interrupt each other and they can be set to their own levels. Let's bring up the next window, which is probably the most self-explanatory window that there is. Comments and reactions. If you're streaming live, when they comment, it'll show up on this screen, and you can even favorite the comments. You can search through the comments. There's a search box that will pop up, so you can have the comments pop up here just by clicking on them, moving them where you want, and then resizing them similar to how we did each of these overlays. The next utility window is interview. To bring in a guest to the interview window, you'll click on copy link, send it to the guest. The guest opens the link. It's going to bring up their browser. They'll get to choose which microphone shows up, as well as which camera shows up. Your guests will be inside of that green room until you manually bring them in. Here's how I like to do it. I like to add a camera source, and then I will change the camera source from my actual camera to guest 1. And then I will change it to the aspect ratio I like, position it where I want, and this is typically something that you would have done beforehand. However, you would have had it hidden. And then whenever it's time to bring the guest in, just unhide the window and their image will pop up there. Now, if for some reason they're not perfectly centered up in the window, you can always go to the camera effects, change to guest 1, and then you'll be able to move it around. Okay, the last one we're going to go over today is settings. Settings will be a completely different video. If I can give you one tip, it is to choose a recording folder that will not sync with your iCloud. You don't want to have all of your recordings syncing with your iCloud while you're trying to stream, take care of other business, maybe edit a video. So choose a folder that does not go to your iCloud. After seeing all of this, I know you've got some questions. This is where you'll take your questions, type them out, leave them in the comments. Promise I'll get back to you. Because I know you're a curious person and you probably want to learn more about audio and video, live productions, as well as recording instructional videos, you might want to stick around, check out some of these other videos. Probably going to help you out. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.